This is Nina Lockwood. Welcome to Get Your Happy Back. Stories and insights that will inspire you to find new sources of happiness in your own life. Stop shrinking your voice and start using it as the tool it was meant to be. That's what my guest Heather Maîr shows us today on the podcast. Already we're laughing. Welcome to Get Your Happy Back. I am so happy to be here with Heather Maîr Thomas. Hello, you've been talking to people around the world today.
I have. I've been running some courses today on Zoom, and it's sort of evening for me now,
That's right.
and I've been sort of at it for since 9:30 this morning, chatting to people in
Nice.
Taiwan and all over the place. So yeah, it's
How
been a busy
wonderful.
old international day of singing.
Fabulous. So just so those of you who are watching or listening know what we're talking about, Heather is an award-winning singer and coach. She has over 30 years experience across opera, jazz, commercial music. She has a talent for blending vocal technique, hypnotherapy, which we might talk about, and coaching to create something called the Sing Therapy Method. And that's basically designed to help adults overcome, I love this phrase, vocal insecurity. So one of the fun things we get to talk about in this podcast is the things that allow us to get our happy back. And I know for you that singing makes you happy, and it has to make the people that you sing with happy as well. So talk a little bit about that, if you would.
Well, I mean, for me, I've always been a singer. I've always been someone who sang, and but as a teacher, as a coach, it sort of became obvious to me that there are a lot of people who wanted to sing but didn't think they could, or someone had told them they couldn't when they were a child, or they'd got this idea in their head that singing wasn't something that they were entitled to, or it wasn't
Mm-hmm.
available to them for whatever reason. And a sort of series of odd, strange events led me to teaching. I hadn't planned to. I hadn't planned to teach at all. I just wanted to sing and not teach. But I ended up teaching sort of when I was about 30 odd years ago now. And the first person I taught, it wasn't what I expected at all. I thought that I was just going to teach people who were quite happy about singing and could sing and just wanted to do auditions and stuff. But there's something about the way that I advertised. I think because I put "Scaredy Cat's Welcome" on my first advert, that the first person who came along had never sung in her life and was indeed a scaredy cat and didn't think she could. And there was just something about her and something about me and the way we sort of blended that I ended up learning so much more about the nature of singing in terms of well-being and people. That
Mm.
this woman came along and wanted to learn. I didn't really know how to teach at that point, so it was all kind of making up as I went along and realizing that there was so much more to it than just
Mm.
singing a song. And through that I decided to train in, I'd already sort of trained in singing and gone to conservatoire and everything else, but I went and did hypnotherapy, coaching, and all the rest of it when I realised that there was so much more to singing. And then I ended up, I don't know, my expertise, I think, is about helping people to reclaim the voices that were denied them as children.
Mm.
When people at school would sort of tell them they couldn't sing and they had to go and sit over there or whatever.
Right.
And we grow up with this awful idea in our head that we can't do it. And I realized that actually with the right sort of technique, the right attitude, the right sort of excavating why people believe what they believe and how we can actually help people experience their voices physically, mentally, and emotionally,
Mm-hmm.
that's where the joy is, that people suddenly
Yeah.
think, hang on a minute, yeah, I can. And of course, we all know how beneficial the act of singing is, for our bodies and minds and spirits and souls and everything else. So all of a sudden you can do that, and there's your happy.
Oh, that's great. What do you think is the one totally unexpected thing that singing teaches people about themselves?
Ooh, well, I think it helps us to identify our belief systems about ourselves. I think it can help us to, I mean, I do with the way that I teach, I also give people journaling to do. So we do a lot
Mm,
of journaling prompts, and we try and excavate what we believe about singing and what we believe about ourselves, and we see how far we are happy to go, what feels like a risk, what feels like a boundary. And so we kind of find that out, and it often turns out that it doesn't just apply to singing, that it applies to all sorts of areas of our lives, that we have these
mhm.
beliefs about ourselves, and how far we can go. So when we learn to sing, especially with like the sing therapy thing that I've been developing, it's it's that we can find out a lot about how scared we are of this, or what stops us doing that, or who we actually think we are in terms of our
Right.
vocal identity and therefore our own identity. But another thing that singing can teach us about ourselves is it can bring us our wellness back. Because I think what a lot of people don't realize, I mean, I
Mm,
know we all know that, singing is good for you. We all say this, and it is. But when you sort of understand why, it's even better, because the whole sort of singing mechanism, the whole sort of the breathing, the resonance, all the stuff that we do with our bodies, creating stuff as an instrument, we are stimulating the vagus nerve. We're getting rid of all the cortisol. We're helping ourselves to digest our food and for our organs to function and all these things. You kind of, yeah, singing's good for you. But when you actually look at how actually it really, really is good for you on a physical and mental level, that's where the tragedy is, where so many people think they can't do it.
that's
Because,
so true. Oh my
yeah,
gosh, sorry to interrupt you, but
no,
it,
please.
it makes me wonder about the question of what happens to a person's sense of self when they finally let their own sound come through.
It can be so huge. It can be absolutely huge, such a revelation for people to hear themselves without judgment. It's really hard to do it without judgment when you're used to judging.
Mm,
You know, that's one of the things you kind of have
mm. Join the
to get
club.
used to. Yeah, absolutely. But the sense of self, because singing is not just about making music. Singing and the voice is about who we are. It's about,
Mm,
expressing ourselves. Our voice is our voice. And when we learn to sing, also we learn to develop our speaking voice and the way that we express ourselves in words as well. Um, and so, what happens to a person's sense of self is, I think it expands. I
mhm.
think there can be, actually, with people I've worked with, there's sometimes a bit of a grief process when people realize that they have access to something much more than they ever allowed themselves to have, or they were ever allowed to have, by the people around them teasing them or whatever. That actually, when you get to the point where, oh, I can do this and this is wonderful, people get terribly upset. They grieve over the lost years where they could have been singing, or they could have been
Mm,
enjoying their voices more. So that can be quite
yeah.
a big thing. There's always a lot of emotion.
Wow. That is so it makes so much sense and it's very similar. You know, we were talking earlier before we started this recording about self-expression. Same thing is true for us as we go through school when we're told by the time we're, you know, 6, 7, 8, you can't draw, you can't sing, you can't whatever it is, told to somebody by some misled adult. And that experience robs us of who our potential and our possibilities you were talking about earlier.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, it's a crime. It really is. And more often than not, the people who are giving us these instructions, or giving us these beliefs, are in no way qualified to judge.
Absolutely.
I mean, I'm a professional vocal coach. I've been one for 30 years, but I'm still not qualified to judge whether or not a person can sing or can't sing. I
Mhm.
mean, for instance, you look at the difference between different sorts of artists that you've heard of. You've got an artist like uh, Placido Domingo, someone who, an
Mm.
opera singer, and then you've got someone with a completely different sort of voice, like Tom Waits, or,
Right.
or Bob Dylan or Leonard Cohen. They've all completely different voices. Um, but they're all voices and they're all beautiful in their own way.
Mm.
But if Leonard Cohen had gone along to Placido Domingo's teacher, he may well have given up there and then because
Right.
he wasn't allowed to. You know what I mean? It's like
Yeah.
we have to find our own sound, or
Yes.
we don't even have to find it. We don't have to do anything. We can just sing. And actually, I always say, unless you are charging someone an awful lot of money to come and hear you sing, and you've promised them a certain sort of experience, unless you've done that, people are in no way entitled to judge or critique your sound.
Mm.
It's really not up to anybody else. But
Yeah.
unfortunately, everybody is Simon Cowell, aren't they? You go, everyone's always got something to say about somebody's voice, and it makes people very self-conscious.
Of course it
Um,
does.
and quite often, finding somewhere to actually practice on your own is difficult. I
Except
mean,
in the shower, right?
the shower or the car, honestly.
Right.
And I reckon if everybody sang in the car, there'd be no more road rage. We'd all be singing away, driving along. But yeah, there are all these little elements that all come together, and I think one of the biggest things as well is men when boys' voices change.
Mm.
It
Yeah.
can be quite traumatic, and I think it's one of those things that's not really addressed. The emotional impact of that on you've got a little boy who's singing his little songs one day, and the next minute he sounds like a foghorn, and there's embarrassment, and there's teasing, and he's confused, and his
Yeah.
parents are confused, and there's all this other stuff going on at the same time with the body, and it can be a train wreck, and some of them never come out the other side. Some boys never sing
Mm.
again after their voices break because it's been traumatic vocally, and
So interesting.
yeah, yeah. But
Wow.
I sort of spent a lot of time with a lot of people who've had a lot of different experiences, and
Yes, I would
you know,
say. So when you help someone reclaim their voice, what is that moment where you feel that their soul is actually stepping forward?
well, it's different for everybody. I think for
Mm.
some people, just walking through the door is a huge, huge thing. I mean, quite often I have people who literally walk through the door and they're crying before they sit down because even
Mm.
getting to me has been a huge ordeal. And because the fear involved in actually coming to somebody whose, you know, title says,
Trained.
yeah, they think, what's she going to be like? She's going to be this and that, the other. And it's traumatic, and people are very, very frightened. I
Hmm.
mean, I teach people who literally will not make a sound for the first few weeks, or they'll only make a sound if I make it with them. There's this whole thing about being revealed, but that, I think, the first step is the first step.
Yeah.
Making the call, sending the email, coming through the door. It's different for everybody. And as our confidence grows, or as we give ourselves evidence that actually maybe is something possible here, because the thing is, working with voice, it's very different to working with an instrument. If you've got an instrument, you've got a
Mm.
piano, I can say, right, we'll put your finger here and then this will happen. I mean, obviously there's a lot more to it than that, but the
Hmm.
instrument is there. But with the voice, where is it? We've all got bodies, and the voice is part of the body, but also, how do you experience it? Everyone
Hmm.
experiences it in a different way. We all have different ways of hearing, we have different ways of feeling the sound that we're making, or understanding
Right.
what to think, or we have different sensory experiences with voice. So, you might say to someone, well, I'll play this little tune and you just copy it. Some people can't necessarily do that automatically,
Yes.
and they
Right.
need to learn to do that. And they think that their inability to do that means that they can't sing. Or what it means is they
Hmm.
don't know how at that point to access that skill.
Yeah.
But, this is it. This is why we should never give up with that. We just have to help people to find out how it is they experience their voice, get in there with them, try and work out what it is they're feeling and what it is they're doing, and then you move from there together. And that's what I try to do.
Oh, that's so great. So, what is the most delightfully weird warm-up sound that you make that instantly frees people up.
We do this thing called sirening, which is not unusual. I mean, lots of, singing teachers and actors do it, but if you've never done it, it can feel really strange. And basically, it's called sirening because it sounds like a siren. But it's it's one of those things you can do in the car, you can do in the shower, you can do everywhere. And what it does is it warms up the vocal folds. And the vocal folds are like any other muscle in the body. If you were going to go and play tennis, you do a few stretches and all the rest of it. If you're going to sing, it's good to warm up the vocal folds, which are the little muscles, the vocal cords. And in sirening, what we're doing is just sort of getting them all limber and juicy and getting them all
Mm,
ready. But sirening is lovely because you can do it whether you feel that you can sing or not. And you kind of make a sound
right.
as if you were going to say the word sing and you've got the at the end. So we just make that sound, but we kind of whiz around different parts of our range. So we might go sort of like that, or move it and it's like you get a bunch of people doing that together in a room, and it's hilarious. But it's really really good for you. And also, as you're doing it, if you can feel in your body, you can feel your body start to resonate. You can start to, put your hands here or put your hands here, and you can go sort of, and you're
Hmm.
feeling this, and you're feeling your body as being an instrument, and it's a lovely thing to do. And you're also stimulating the vagus nerve at the same time. So you've got this
Hmm.
whole lovely sort of rest and digest thing going on. You're making the sound, you're warming up the vocal cords, you're making yourself laugh, feeling like a bit of a twit. It's all good. So yeah.
Well, isn't it important that we get to laugh at ourselves instead of being
Yes.
afraid, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah.
So
Oh, sorry, my
it
phone's going off. Oh,
that's all
always
right.
does this. Duolingo. There you go.
Oh. Should we be translating our
I don't
conversation?
know.
So I might have asked you this already in a different way, but what is something that's totally unexpected that people um, learn about themselves, other than not to be afraid and that judgment isn't a voice killer after all?
Um, I think people can surprise themselves when they actually open up, when they actually find their voices. People can surprise themselves. People who thought that they were very kind of introverted or quiet people, once they start to open up, they'll discover this instrument is like a vehicle for taking them into a sort of a wider experience in
Mm,
the world. So they might end up like joining a choir and or starting to do karaoke, or just have a different kind of experience with their voice, or they may find themselves speaking up more in meetings or having a different kind of communication experience with other people. But there's something about the way that we learn singing. One of the very fundamental things, one of the extremely fundamental things of voice, is the whole thing about breath, and the whole thing about owning your breath, learning to control your breath, to allow the breath to relax you, and then to harness the breath to create the sound. As we do that, it has so many benefits that it's relaxing the body, but it's also giving us more power in our spoken voice. So, and more control in our spoken voice as well.
you bring up so many points, it's hard for me to not interrupt you.
Oh, please do.
So, what I'm wondering about is there a relationship between singing and learning to use the breath and breath work?
Yes,
So,
yes,
share something
yes,
about
yes,
that.
yes, 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 yes. I do breath work in my sing therapy sessions. Excuse me. Um, and the relationship between breath work, sorry, I'm going to cough a minute, so I'm just going to put myself on mute.
Okay.
There we are.
All right.
Something in the back of my throat. Um, Breath work is something that is fundamental to singing, but it wasn't called breath work. If you see what I mean, like
Yes,
breath work, I'm
yes.
sure has been around for a long time, but it's only become sort of widely used, widely known in more recent years.
I've heard it's now called the breath work is the new yoga,
Oh yeah, absolutely. And it's
right?
wonderful. It's really
Yeah.
wonderful. I mean, all the nitrous oxide, all the stuff, all the things that it does. But if you look at what it is, I mean, obviously there are different nuances and different ways to go in different directions with it. And I'm absolutely delighted that people are coming to breathwork and discovering breathwork. But it's always been there in terms of singing.
Mm.
In terms of classical singing specifically, people who've studied bel canto singing, the breath is the basis of the voice. Oh, I'm not doing very well, Nina. My earpod just fell out of my ear, so hang on a second. Now I've got to go under the table and find it. Then I'll be able to tell you all about breath work. Hang on a second. True professional, as always. Okay, here we are. Um, the thing about bel canto singing is that we learn early on that the breath is the voice and the voice is the
Mm.
breath. And that in harnessing the breath, that's where the sound is. And not only
Mm.
are you singing on the breath, but it's relaxing the body, it's working everything. So when you watch an opera singer making an enormous, enormous sound on a stage, and they're not moving and you can't see anything moving because it's happening so naturally, this is the power of breath work. Do you see what I mean? That you've harnessed it. And so in order to be able to sing in that way, you have to do breath work. It's just that it isn't packaged in the same way. And yeah, it's a wonderful, wonderful thing to get into because it's so beneficial. But this is why singing is so beneficial, because it's all part of the same thing. It's just that for breathwork you
Mm.
don't need singing, but for singing you need breathwork.
That makes a lot of sense. So from talking with you, I know that your technique involves a combination of technique and play. And which one do you think that adults secretly need the most?
Oh God, play. I mean, adults think that they're adults. That's the problem, isn't it? I mean, we think we are, but it's like cosplay. We're like children dressed up in older bodies, and but a lot of the time we forget that. You know, there comes a time in a lot of people's lives where they think, right now I've got to grow up, I've got to do this now. But actually, have
Right.
you? You know, I mean, and I think this is the sad thing. That because sometimes, you know, the same day that somebody came to that child, age 6, and put them over there on that bench because they couldn't sing, that was a day where they started to lose that
Yes.
connection to childhood, because
Yes.
the innocence of childhood, the purity of it, the joy of it, the playfulness of it is when
Mm.
nothing is restricted. But we know that if we wake up in the morning and we want to be Superman, we can be Superman because that's what we think we are, you know. And at some point we stop that, or a lot of us do, and there's a sadness about people who sort of yearn for that part of themselves, I
Yes.
think. And the
Yes.
beauty of things like singing, music, theatre, art, you know, all those things that people lose their connection to sometimes. You know, the sadness about that is that that's where the connection is. So all the work that people do with you and with me and with people who go into all kinds of playful creativity, you know, that's where you connect back to yourself, because yourself is the self that you always were. You might just be a little bit older and you might have a few more responsibilities or a car or something or some kids, but that doesn't mean you're any less yourself than you were when you
Right.
started,
Oh, I love
you
that you're
know?
saying that. I'm really with you on that because as we were talking before about self-expression before we started the recording, people don't do that. I mean, they think they are if they're giving a presentation in a professional sense, or they're writing a brief, or they're doing, they're doing something
Mm.
productive. But that kind of freedom that comes with real self-expression, it's a rare thing. And as I was insisting when we were talking earlier, is the way we get out of our problem mindset is to be able to let what's inside of us out, whether it's dancing, singing, making stuff, anything that allows that part of us that isn't governed by shoulds and shouldn'ts to be allowed out and have room to play and express itself.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, without judgment. You know, it's the
Yes.
judgment that scares us, isn't it? And it's the
Mm-hmm.
judgment not just of ourselves, but of the people who are going to judge us. You know, what
That's
will they
right.
think? What will they
Right.
think? Whoever they
I,
are, what will
yeah.
they think? And
Yeah,
quite
those
often it's
terrible
us.
they.
Yeah, God, there's an awful lot of them. I mean, we're probably they to other people. That's
Right.
what's awful. But it's odd, isn't it? It's really odd. I mean, I did an art class. I don't know if I told you this. Yeah, about sort of 15 years ago, I wanted to do an art class. I saw one advertised locally, and it was mixed media art. And I used to love art at school. I absolutely loved it. And my whole life I'd always, made things and done things, but never thought much about it. It was just something I enjoyed. And I wanted to do this class. It just appealed to me. And it was at the library here in London. And I went along and I was really nervous. And the teacher gave us these big bits of paper. We all sort of sat there and she said, "Now, I want you to doodle. I want you to draw a doodle on this piece of paper." Gave us some pens or whatever. And I sat there and I almost had a panic attack. I got so up in my head about this doodle that I was thinking, "Oh God, what does she mean? What if it's the wrong sort of doodle? Oh, what if I do a small one and she wants a big one? Or what if it's the wrong shape? Or what if it's..." And I literally got up and went to the loo and cried because I got so up in my head about this. Because in our house, my husband is the artist. You know, he's an artist, and that was my husband is the artist. I'm the
Right.
musician, he's the artist.
Yeah.
Even though my whole life there's evidence of me making art, but it was like I'd forgotten that. Anyway, I went along and I was so stressed out, and I remember sitting down and I said to her afterwards, I went back in and I said, I'm having trouble with this. And she said, "Well, just do something." She said, "And then if it's awful, you can just keep going and turn it into something else and just keep going." Anyway, I did keep going and I ended up doing that class for years and years, and I ended up exhibiting. And, I'm still sort of, I don't do it that often because I haven't got time at the moment, but I still make art. I've got a whole room upstairs with all my stuff, and it was so
Nice.
freeing, so
Yeah.
freeing. And she was so patient with me, but I can remember observing, being up in my head about it and realizing that that is what my clients go through when they come to me, that I
Brilliant.
was having the same experience, but it had a different coat on. It was a different thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I had so much sort of compassion then for my clients, knowing that that's how it
Mm.
made me feel. Um, yeah, a
Wow.
huge, huge revelation. It's what we
How
believe, isn't it?
isn't it interesting how a what was a difficult that's probably a mild word for it, difficult experience that was for you ended up being so transformative for you in terms of your compassion for your own students.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, that was a gift. It really was, because I think I'd always had compassion for my students, but I hadn't felt it on that kind of visceral level,
Yeah. Yeah.
um, until I realised that that was that. And when I could analyse what was going on, that it was all about belief, it was all about fear of disappointment. I mean, that was a big thing for me that I discovered was a theme in my life. That I had this thing about disappointing people, and I had this thing about, and all
Yeah.
these things that we come up against, whether it's making art or journaling or singing or anything,
Yeah.
that we realise, and through the process of healing that we do, as you said earlier on, we apply them to other things, and we see
Yeah.
that these are our boundaries and these are our beliefs about ourselves. And when we can loosen them up, um, and drop them down a little bit, you think, "Oh my God, I'm carrying this. This doesn't fit me. This is not
Right.
me." And so,
Right.
gosh, how can I apply this new freedom to something else? And the whole thing has a wonderful effect.
Yeah. That's so great. Is there, from everything you've been saying, is there one myth in particular about singing that you wish you could make disappear, throw into the recycling bin forever?
Yeah, and there are several actually. How long have you got? But um, I think one of the things that gets me is this thing about high notes, right? And I'm saying that with inverted commas. This thing about high notes. I I mean, I accept that obviously in music and sound we have different ranges and pitches, and in a tune, obviously, we have to use the language of
Right.
high and low to describe where notes are. But what we do with that is we take it on physically. And what I mean by that
Mm,
is that when people start talking about high notes, they start to, because the whole thing about singing, a lot of singing for a lot of people is because it isn't an instrument you can see. We start to make up stories and pictures in our heads about what's actually going on with the process. So sometimes
yeah.
that can be really useful when you're teaching someone. You can use imagery and metaphor and
Hmm.
everything to help people
Hmm.
to produce sound if you are on the same wavelength as each other. Um, but the trouble with that, when you start talking about high and low, you start seeing things in your head in a vertical. So if I'm talking about, right, I want you to, the song goes like this, and then this note is here, people think, oh, that's high. And they're doing physically lifting. They're actually thinking that it's actually up here. And I've had teachers when I was a kid, who said to me, oh, that's a high note. You must jump in the air when you must reach for the thing, and you must and all this. And of course, the whole body will start to do this. And in doing this, in thinking up, having this up feeling, and the head comes back like this, you physically start to make it impossible to sing that note because you've closed your throat up by having this lifting thing and you're thinking
Hmm.
like this. And I call it vocal vertigo because quite often we don't, especially as women, we don't access our head voices very much. We have all different
Mm,
registers in our voices, but a lot of women, especially with contemporary music and stuff, people don't sort of do a lot of the kind of church hymn singing that they used to, or just the
hmm.
style of music is different to what it used to be in the olden days. The olden days, probably when I was a kid.
Right.
But a lot of the music nowadays is more contemporary. A lot of it is sung in a sort of middle register. And so if there are notes that feel extremely high, people don't even go there because it feels impossible to do. And
Hmm.
so a lot of women have a fear of their own sort of inner soprano, the sort of
Interesting.
the sort of classical sounding upper notes that we all, most of us, have, that everybody has more range than they think they've got it. And there was one woman, for instance, that I taught who'd been gifted some lessons by her husband, and she came along and she didn't think she could sing at all. She thought she wanted to sing like Joan Armatrading. Do you know Joan Armatrading?
Oh,
It's a
yes, of course.
fantastic singer,
Yeah,
fantastic,
yeah,
but very much a low, an alto voice.
yeah.
And this woman wanted to sing like her, and we worked and we worked and we were trying all these things. I could not make it happen. And then by some tricks and tips and stuff, we discovered that she had this natural, bright, shiny soprano range, like a kind of
Wow.
classical soprano, which
Yeah,
we've
yeah.
all got. It's just that we don't necessarily go there because most of us haven't got a reason to. It
Hmm.
sounds like you're kind of making a funny noise and you wouldn't bother, and there isn't a song to sing when you get there. But we played with it and we found it, and it was so natural for her. It was such a bright, easy place. Anyway, she went on. This
Wow.
is 20 odd years ago, and she's still singing. She's still joined choirs and done things and had wonderful experiences with her voice. My cat there, what's she doing?
Oh, no,
Oh,
it's
I was
fine. Cats love to be around Zoom calls.
yeah, telling me about it. Yes. Anyway, so she sang and sang and sang, and she still sings. But what I'm sort of saying is that because we have this fear of where notes are and this thing about high notes and low notes, we don't even entertain the thought that actually these
Mm,
vocal folds are quite capable of going an awful lot further or thinner or thicker than we give them credit for. And people are frightened of their voices. So if there was one thing I would throw in the bin, it's this myth about the voice being vertical. Um, and that would be it. Yeah.
that's fascinating. I would think that if you're trying to sing a higher note, that you would have to engage something more in your chest to have the and I don't know from this, but I'm just kind of making this up that to sing a high note you have to start from a lower place. But am I wrong with that? Because if you're
Um,
up here, doesn't it tend to get kind of nasally and squeaky?
Not necessarily, no. No, there's a brightness that you can find in a siren. I mean, you could be sirening in there and you're not really making any great effort at all. But I mean, if I was singing like an operatic aria and I was in the soprano range, I would be using my technique, which would be engaging my abdominal muscles.
Okay.
So you need the support of the breath.
So I
So
was
the breath,
close.
yeah, very close.
Just go a
But the
little
chest,
lower.
you kind of keep away from the chest a little bit because it doesn't really have any musculature that's any use to you.
Oh,
Um,
interesting.
yeah, so the musculature that is useful is what is the bellows, what is sending the breath out, and it's
Ah,
here. So if you
yeah.
were to cough, for instance, like that, you'd feel here. And
Mm-hmm.
people call it diaphragmatic breathing, which it kind of is, but it's more than the diaphragm by the time you get to be exhaling. And so, yes, for a strong upper register note, you'd want to be engaging here because you want to be staying away from any throat muscles. We tend to assume just sort of physics. So the cat is making silly noises. Never mind.
Don't worry.
That
That's what they
that
do.
we need when when you see people sometimes it's kind of performative. You see sort of
Yes.
people in bands and they're kind of singing like this and it's all like this and they're sort of straining and groaning and
Yeah.
grunting, and anything that you're doing in the throat physically, if the muscles are doing anything, they're not doing you any good because the whole way of using the throat, it's not musculature that you need, it's just access to the vocal folds, and then the air needs to be able to pass through. So but sometimes we sort of urge and we do all this tension here, and
Mm-hmm.
more often than not it's making it worse. So yeah, always coming away from there, letting the throat be not involved in a muscular action at all, and just coming back and putting it low.
Mm.
Yeah.
So I think you've answered this question, but one of them that was on my mind was if we listened really closely, what could our voices reveal about how we're living our lives?
Ooh, I think you can hear tension in people's voices. You can hear stress. You
Mm-hmm.
can hear sadness. You can hear they're emotional. It's our primary form of communication, the voice.
Mm-hmm.
And we can reveal a lot about how relaxed we are. I think when you're speaking to someone, you can tell by their body language, you can tell by their vocal language, by their breathing, by the whole sort of pattern of somebody's ness, you know, whether or not they're in a centered place. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
there are some people that you can talk to who tell you they're in a centered place, and I've just been doing this thing, but they're kind of slightly up here, and the voice is a little bit tense, and it's not quite true. So there's a kind of truth in a centered voice, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. What what would you say is the either the funniest or the most heartwarming moment that you've seen when somebody surprised themselves with their own voice?
Well, it happens quite a lot, so it's difficult to say what would be the funniest.
Just pick one.
Yeah. I mean, often it's in a group. I do this thing called the Voice Club in London, and when I first started, it was mainly aimed at people who were learning, who were just trying out, and quite often people would surprise themselves, but they would do it in a way that they had almost. There was one man in particular who was always saying what he couldn't do. He was,
Mm.
well, I won't be able to do this now. Well, I can't do that. I'm rubbish. And this whole little mantra would be going on all the time. And then I remember one day he did. He surprised himself, and the look on his face, everybody just fell about because he wasn't expecting to be able to. I think it was a breath thing. I think there was something we were learning a song, and I was trying to get people to sing a phrase
Hmm.
in one breath
One
without
breath.
having to keep gasping it, and he did. And I remember just the look on his face, and everyone just sort of fell around because it was almost like we were giving ourselves. He was trying to give himself evidence about what he couldn't do because it felt more comfortable for him.
Right.
He was so used to it not being possible. It's almost like a challenge. It was almost like he was daring me to try and help him to do something. And of course, it wasn't
Yeah.
me doing it. I was just giving him the tools or making suggestions that, might work. Because sometimes they do and sometimes they don't. Everybody's
Yeah.
different. We've all got
Yeah.
completely different relationships with our voice. But I remember him, and he was a bit of a grumpy old thing. But yeah, no, it turned him around actually.
Wow, that's wonderful. Was there a part of your own voice that you needed to make peace with as you've gone through your own journey with singing?
Um, I think I think for me, there've been times in my life where the last thing I felt like doing is singing.
Mm.
There's been, I mean, I come from quite a family of musicians, and am I going to let the cat out now? I'm just going to let her carry on.
No, she's fine. You
Yeah, family of musicians, and everyone's always sung. They've always been, my grandfather was a choir leader of the male voice choir and stuff like that. And so, yeah. And there was a time where, I mean, it was very sad. I mean, it was terribly, terribly personal. When I was 9, my sister died,
mm.
and my mum said she would never sing again. She was actually singing in a concert when the police came and told her what had
Oh
happened. She had to come off the
my.
stage. It was awful. I mean, it was a horrible part of our lives. It was bad. And I remember it being so much a part of who she was that she just stopped. She wasn't going to sing anymore. And obviously it was just the worst thing that could happen to a family.
Mm-hmm.
And she didn't sing, not for a long time, but gradually she did. She over the years she did go in choirs and things. She never sang another solo, but she did sort of join other choirs and start to sing sort of in her life. And then when, yeah, it was when I was about 29 or whatever, she died. And
Mm.
I was singing a lot at that
Young.
point.
Yeah.
And I had been doing, really well, doing lots of lovely things and stuff like that. When she was ill, she wouldn't tell me because I was doing marvelous things with my career and things, and she didn't want me to know. And I can remember understanding exactly how she'd felt at that point when she
Mm.
died, that I didn't want to sing anymore. Um,
Yeah.
because it kind of feels like you lose a part of yourself
Mm.
in
Mm-hmm.
such a way that it feels like, what's the point? Why would I
Sure.
want to, I've got
Yeah.
too much in here, because singing is so personal, and you
Yeah. So
do
emotional.
dig deep into who you are and what you're feeling.
Yeah.
And so it's very, very difficult to continue. But I had the most incredible singing teacher as a
Mm.
guy called John Wakefield, and it's funny actually because I've got cassette tapes of all our lessons that we had then, and there's a whole series of them where all I do is cry in the lessons. I start, I try and sing, and I stop, and I cry and I cry and I cry, and it was
Mm.
probably incredibly important that that happened, that I was still turning up to my singing lessons, that I would open my mouth and that I would cry, because that's what was coming through for me at that
Yes.
time.
Right.
And I do believe that there are such a lot of people who have a lot of tears to shed for
Mm-hmm.
things in their lives and they don't. And a lot of people are so close to that when they start singing that it's almost frightening for them to go there, because you're kind
Mm-hmm.
of digging into a seam of sadness
Yes.
or emotion
Mm-hmm.
or truth. And
Yeah.
we fear that if we dig into that seam of emotion or sadness or truth, that we'll never get out of it. But we
Mm.
do. But the only way we get out of it is to go into it.
Sure. Yeah.
And
Mm.
singing, it can be such a vehicle, because it's you, it's your breath, and you know what it's like. If you feel like crying, the first thing that goes is your breath. It's that thing,
Right.
isn't it? We
Yeah.
can't breathe properly. If we're so
Yeah.
full of emotion, we're so close to our feelings, that our bodies start protecting us from going there. But if we allow ourselves to do it, if we allow ourselves to feel what
Mm.
we feel,
Permission.
and we have that process, that, yeah, you might do for 6 months. I probably did. I probably spent 6 months every singing lesson, 2 or 3 singing lessons a week, probably just crying. And eventually I wasn't. And I can still cry at the drop of a hat. I love to feel what I feel, and I've had a lot of things to cry over in my life. But I don't feel scared of it. I don't feel like there's any kind
Mm,
of imbalance. I don't feel like if I dig into it, I'll never come out, because I know if I dig into it, that's where I'll be for that period of time, and then I won't
yeah.
be. So this
Hmm.
thing about, one of the things that people are afraid of making art or making music or using their voice as an instrument is they're frightened of finding themselves, because finding yourself is not just
Yeah.
finding this, it's finding that, you
Yeah.
know? And we're made of light and shade, and we're so afraid of the shade that we never find the light.
Right. Oh, that's so true. What do you think? If everybody sang for 30 seconds in the morning, how would that change the world?
It depends on your neighbours, really. I think, I don't know. We always used to do this thing when I was at school, and I don't think they do it anymore. Our kids never did. We'd have a big singing assembly every morning.
Oh,
You go to
really?
school and we'd all sing hymns, and they'd all be big, and everybody would sing, and then you'd be set up for the day and everything. And there's a guy over here, I don't know if he's in America. I can't remember his name. I can't remember, is it Peacock or something? And he does these wonderful things where he even did Glastonbury. He's like a music teacher, and he gets everybody singing.
You're not talking about Jacob Collier, are you?
No, 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 but I love Jacob Collier. No, this is another guy who he has a piano, and he basically he calls them school bangers or something, like school assembly songs. And he
Right.
gets people singing all the old school assembly songs
Uh-huh.
en masse, and does these big concerts, and everybody loves it because they go along and they sing, all the big hymns, and they sing all the stuff, whether they're religious or not. But it reminds you of the time where you were expelling that emotion together, and there's
Hmm.
something so powerful about that. So I think personally, yes, singing every morning would be great, but singing together is even better.
Uh,
So if you went to every workplace or every cafe or every everything, and everyone just started singing Bohemian Rhapsody together or something like that, it would be excellent. It would be excellent
it's very
because everyone
excellent.
would be so cheerful, and it would be
Ah,
fun.
that's, I love that. So, two things as we wrap up for now. One is, what are you up to these days? And the second question is, where can people find you?
Ooh, well, what am I up to? I'm doing all sorts of things actually. I'm writing a book. I've nearly finished it. I spent nearly the whole year writing this book, and it's called Sing Therapy, which is the thing that I've been developing. So what I'm trying to do is make it available to everybody.
Mm,
And I'm doing it as an online program, and I'm running two Sing Therapy courses at the moment actually, which are on Zoom, which is why I've been talking to people in Taiwan and Dubai and everywhere else. Um, and it's lovely. So we do two a day, once a week. So people in
hmm.
certain countries can come at certain times, and other countries. So that's going on at the moment. That's going to happen again in January. And I'm doing some in-person workshops here in London as well. On Thursday, I'm doing a couple. Anyway, I'm teaching one-to-one and writing this book, doing the programs, and that's it really. And I've got three kids and a husband, and so I'm busy. And I've got
And a
Christmas coming
cat.
up. I know, and a cat. Oh my God, the cat. And they can find me lots of different ways, because I've got about 1,000 different domain names. I'm one of those people that just gets domain names. But the one you can find me at is heathervoice.com, because Heather is me, voice is what I do.com, or singtherapy.com. I've got that one as well, and Sing Therapy is a good name to
Great,
remember. So I'm on
great.
all those places, on Facebook and everywhere else. But yeah, website is heathervoice.com or singtherapy.com.
Well,
And
I would
everything is
imagine
on
that,
there.
excuse me again for interrupting you.
Please.
Uh, I would, I have a feeling that after our conversation, there are going to be people who want to reach out to you. So this is good information, and I'll also put it in the liner notes for the podcast.
Thank you, Nina. That's very kind.
So thank you so much for spending time with me today. It's so late in the day for you.
That's okay. I love spending time with you. I
Well,
absolutely love it. And I love looking at your studio.
oh,
Yeah, I absolutely do. It's always so uplifting and cheerful
oh,
there.
thank you. Takes one to know one, I think.
Oh,
Oh, that's great. So thank you. Now I've got it. Thank you, those of
sorry.
you. It came right through the screen. For those of you who are watching or listening, we are so happy to have you with us. And if you like what you've been listening to or watching, please join us again. So, bye for now.
Lovely. Thank you. Bye, Nina.
Bye bye. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to hit subscribe and leave us a comment. Your comment helps me reach more listeners. Thank you.